the case at all, is it?
Not at all. You know, persuasion is fine. It's coercion that's wrong. And well, why we're doing this because we want to expose these ideas. We want to get them out there, make people understand that um, there is another option. In fact, we think that the option that we have now, where the state is always doing something. Like you said, it's liberal versus conservative. Some people think that society will be just fine if you let people do as they want in the bedroom and with their bodies, have what drugs they want, whatever kind of sex they want. That'll work fine, but you gotta contribute to the general fund and pay for somebody else's grandmother's medicine or some poor person's schooling. Meanwhile, the Republicans, they say, no, the money's yours. Do what you want with, but you can't do what you want with your body, and we're going to control all that. We're going to prohibit some things and cause violent wars of prohibition for drugs, or in the past was alcohol. And both sides swear that the government has to step in somewhere, and they both believe the government should stay out of other areas. And you want to tell them, guys, it can work both ways. Like both facets of freedom can work. And I don't know, but we're not trying to force our ideas on anybody, but they're the ones who are trying to force at least some of our actions. Again, the liberals want us to give our money, the government wants us to give our bodies and our personal habits. The conservatives do. So we're not forcing anybody. You guys are, and we want people to stop being forced. But of course, the argument against that then is that produces chaos. And again, anarchy does not mean chaos. These terms have nothing to do with each other. That's why there are two different terms for it. Violence and chaos does not automatically happen when there's no ruler.
Yeah, if anything, all these kinds of government contraptions that they keep trying to build, we've been doing this. How many times have we tried different countries, different systems? How many times have they tried communism? Dozens of times. They're still trying it in some places. How many people have died? Hundreds of millions of people. And how many people have died from anarchism? Like direct government anarchism? Zero, because we've never had an anarchism. We've never had a state or a non-state, a place that does not have a government. Well, yet so many people are so scared of what we're talking about.
That's funny you say that because, America was, initially pretty anarchist. Not in the, the governments of the colonies themselves are pretty religious and all that stuff, but there were places you could go in this country initially, the first 150 years where you could go and live pretty free. And I want to say right now that being an anarchist does not mean that you don't get the benefits of advancement and civilization. Those come naturally from the marketplace. But there was an experiment with that, and it went pretty damn well. And but over time, that went away. In fact, the minute you start enshrining all your freedoms on a piece of paper is exactly when you start giving people room to interpret those freedoms away. So that's why we are anarchists. We don't trust any government to limit itself and to protect our freedoms, because look what happened here. We had a pretty free place, and that went away pretty damn quick when we started encapsulating them in government form. Because the nature of governments is to grow and infringe, and you get eventually, no matter how small you start. And this was the best example of it starting out right in the history of the world. That's as far as I know. And look what happened. Look, we're both running from this country right now. I mean, it's becoming a police state. That term's thrown around a lot, but it is. It's pretty bad. You walk outside with the beer and see what happens to you there. You fight for your freedoms. Like Doug Stanhope says that. You go abroad, you fight for this country, you come back, drink a beer outside, and they'll have you in cuffs in no time. It's ridiculous. They got the TSA feeling you up. They got regulation. You can't start your own business. You can't take what medicines you want. You can't do anything without some dude there ready to put you in jail. Try not to pay into the system that you don't think is working. You're going to jail. So yeah, look how that ended up. A couple hundred years. It's all it took.
Yeah, I agree totally. And it's interesting too. That's actually one of the best arguments against minarchists or constitutionalists. Is look at the U.S. right now, right? All states end up in the same situation as the U.S. right now. They start small, almost always. They never start big. And they just grow until they explode. And that's always happened. There's no examples of that not happening. There's no examples of a government getting big and then getting smaller again. So that's why, and I'm the same way as you, I've come to anarchism. And it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Once you realize it, it's like the sky's open. It's like when they discovered the sun was the center of the universe, because they had been trying to put the Earth in the center of the universe for so long, and they had to keep coming up with different mathematical equations because, how are we going? All of a sudden, Mars started going backwards sometimes. And so that's exactly what we have now. And you see all the rules and regulations, and they keep putting things in place. In Philadelphia right now, they just announced that they're going to have cops on the lookout for people texting on their cell phones while walking. And it's just an example of how this just deteriorates, because you get people who keep trying to make the system work, and oh well, some people are bumping into each other now, and I'm unhappy and I'm broke, and so it must be because someone's bumping into me on the street. We need a guy with a gun to tell us not to do that and to take more money from us, by the way. And so the whole thing is just completely screwed. So this leads me to my last question for you, and that is, how do we get to where we want to be? From my opinion, I think we won't get there until there is a collapse. But we don't necessarily need to cause that collapse. It's happening all on its own. But I'm curious to hear your ideas on, is there any chance of anarchism becoming a way of life in the world, anywhere in the world?
Well, I look at anarchism as inevitable as a view of the sun as the center of our solar system, and an understanding that we're not, and our solar system is, just one of millions or billions in the universe. That same understanding, I think, is going to eventually just overtake humanity, because it's too obvious to ignore that the state doesn't work. So just like and some people still have a problem with evolution, for example, but, scientists are like, guys, we're sorry, we hate to bust your bubble if you don't believe it, but fossil records there, it helps, biology make a lot more sense, think of terms of things having evolved from less complex forms forward. So again, evolution, it's kind of the norm now. And I think anarchism is going to be the same thing. People are going to realize that the state is a horrible idea. It's a horrible way to run things. And that we're just getting too smart, and that it'll collapse on its own. My problem is the timeline. I fear that I won't live to see this. It could take another 200, another 2,000 years for this become humanity's norm. Just like, the advanced nations, teaching evolution's the norm, and teaching that the sun's the center of the solar system is the norm, and, one of many solar systems in a countless solar systems in the universe. I think that's going to come, but I just don't know when. In the meantime, you're asking me what to do. I do not suggest starting a revolution. I suggest what I call personal nullification, just ignoring the state wherever you can. Do not go to jail, because you won't survive jail. It's unpleasant. I've not been, and I'm not going. But I live my life according to my principle of the non-aggression principle. I'm going to live like an anarchist. I know that certain things I do will get me in prison, and I try to avoid doing those things or doing them very obviously. The internet's given us great power to step around the state. I suggest you use that. They're probably going to try to crack down on that too eventually. Whatever, just do that. I buy what I want to buy from whom I want to buy it, from whoever's selling it, and I ignore the whatever tariffs and state lines and prescription. I don't care. That kind of stuff's one small way to start. Gold and silver as currency. I mean, there are people who are thinking the same way you are. There are competing currencies that are coming up. Everything you can do to undermine the state's power, do it personally. And you'll find yourself, because of the internet, able to do it and able to meet other people who think the way you do. It's like a global awakening. And meet with these people online, and if you can, go where they are. Jeff, I know you are trying to get people to Acapulco. Our mutual friend Doug Casey and mentor Doug Casey is trying to get people down to Argentina. People who are of like mind. But even where you are, so in the States, I mean, you can go to New Hampshire. Get with other people. Do not do anything armed. Just try your best to passively live without the state. That's what I suggest.
That's a great message, and I'm actually fairly optimistic. I think the nation states really only lasted a few hundred years here, and it's already collapsing. It's obvious to almost anybody who really is rational. And thanks to the internet, ever since the internet ever came out, I knew things were going to happen quite fast. I see it every day. I don't know about you, but I see it every day, people waking up, and we're going the right way. This nation-state system is collapsing. A lot of people are going to get hurt, unfortunately, mostly because they don't want to believe, they don't want to open their eyes to the truth. If they were to prepare right now, they'd get hurt a lot less. But there's nothing to do to fight this. You can't keep this from collapsing. And I'm really quite optimistic. Anyway, we're running out of time here, but it's been a real pleasure. It's the first episode of Anarchast, and you've been an amazing guest. I definitely hope you can come back sometime really soon. And there's so many things to talk about. You brought up alternative currencies, and I know you have a lot of other things on your mind. So let's do this again real soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Gary Gibson, managing editor of Whiskey and Gunpowder. This has been Anarchast. It's your home for the anarchy on the internet. Thank you.